This week we are going to be beginning the first of a two-part series, which is the laws of Chanukah, to learn the halachos of Chanukah. There's a lot of halachot that go into Chanukah. There's a lot of history that goes into Chanukah, and we're going to try not to keep it only to the laws of Chanukah, like the technical laws of Chanukah, but also to the spiritual insights into Chanukah. Okay? So, the way we're going to divide this class is that this week we are going to be doing the practical, hopefully we'll finish most of the practical, and next week we will be doing the spiritual. In other words, to understand the spiritual insights. I guess the reason I feel like we should divide it that way is because with the practical you often need more, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe it's not true. I was going to say with the practical you often need more heads up, more time to prepare. Because maybe if you don't have menorah, you need to buy a menorah. Maybe if you're going to decide that this is the year you're going to light oil and not candles, then now you have to start on that now by purchasing things. But really, the truth is that the spiritual also needs a lot of preparation. And so I'll try to stick in some of the spiritual this week. Like in theory, if I just give a spiritual class next week on Sunday morning, you need a whole week to prepare, at least, if not 30 days, to prepare yourself spiritually to light the menorah properly with the right intention, etc. So really, they both need a lot of preparation. But since we have 2 Sundays, this is the first one, and next week's the second one. We're going to start this week. We're going to try and divide the class with the practical this week. And next week we will talk a lot more about the spiritual insights of the Chanukah, the messages we're supposed to be taking in the Chanukah, and we'll be doing that about 7 hours, right? 8 hours before we actually start with lighting the menorah, and start with actually taking in the holiday of Chanukah, because next Sunday night will be the holiday of Chanukah. Avram, thank you. Okay, so good morning, welcome to Demystify Chanukah, the first in a 2-part series. This week we'll try and cover most of the history and practical laws of the mitzvot of Chanukah and the customs of Chanukah, and next week we will try and dive into some of the spiritual insights of Chanukah. So join us next week again on Sunday, either in person here with a delicious breakfast, or on Facebook as we continue that journey. So what is Chanukah? Any place in Jewish law which starts off with the laws of Chanukah always starts off with the history, which comes to us primarily from the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Mai Chanukah, what is Chanukah?" It was in the times of the Second Temple, when the Assyrian Greek government was ruling over the Jewish people. They made tremendous decrees, horrible decrees over the Jewish people, because they wanted to destroy their religion. They sent their hands, that's a literal translation of the words in the Gemara, they extended their hands, they extended their reach into the finances and the daughters of the Jewish people, and they went into the Beit HaMikdash, into the chamber, the inner chamber, the Heichal of the Beit HaMikdash, and they desecrated it, and they executed a tremendous amount of pain on the Jewish people right in front of them, until Hashem had mercy upon the Jewish people, and He saved the Jewish people from their hands, and the hand of the Chashmonaim, which we'll talk about in a moment. That's what classically is known as the Maccabees. They were Kohanim, and their hand was strengthened. They were able to vanquish the Assyrian Greeks. They were able to destroy them, and the kingship of Israel came back. The government of Israel, that is, came back to the Jewish people for another 200 years until the destruction of the Second Temple. That's a brief overview of what happened with the story of Chanukah. Now, when the Yevanim, which is the Assyrian Greeks, went into the Beit HaMikdash, they defiled all of the oil. What does that mean? That means that in order to kindle the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, the menorah, of course, was made of 7 branches, not of 8. That 7-branch menorah, which was a mitzvah to light that menorah every single morning as part of the service in the temple. We read about this actually, for those of you that remember, when we did our Siddur Unpacked class. We read about this as part of our davening, and we explored that here. So in order to light the menorah, you had to have pure oil. And the Greeks, who were not only fighting a physical battle, but they were also fighting a spiritual battle, they knew, or I should say, one of the things that was their biggest pet peeve about the Jewish people was this business with them needing to have purity. What's the difference between a jug of oil, same jug of oil, same oil in there? What's the difference if the seal is broken or not broken? The oil is the same clean. The difference is that it's pure or impure, because when it's broken by a non-Jew, the oil is impure, and that oil cannot be used to light the menorah. The menorah needed to be lit with pure olive oil. Pure doesn't mean when you see in the store 100% virgin pure olive oil. It's that too. It had to be that too. But that's not what we mean. What we mean when we say pure, we mean it wasn't tummy, it wasn't impure, it wasn't defiled by the spirit of impurity. And when the Hashmonaim won over them, and this was on the 25th day of Kislev, Badku, they searched, and they couldn't find only one jug of oil. They were only able to find one jug of oil, pure oil that is, and it was hidden inside the ground, and it was still sealed with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and they were able to clearly tell that it had not been touched by the Yevanim, by the impure Assyrian Greeks. Now, even though this jug did not have enough oil for 8 days, and only had enough for lighting the oil for 1 day, anybody know why? This wasn't by chance. That's how the oil was stored. The oil was stored in the Lishkas Hashmanim, in the chamber of oil. They would have little jugs that were enough, each one for one. There was a whole system in place, I think the biggest parallel in our own lives that we can think of with this is COVID. Anybody remember what happened with COVID? About 2-3 weeks into COVID, thank you, Anna, for such a delicious breakfast. Have a great day.
Thank you.
About 2-3 weeks into COVID, we started to run out of things in the store. Maybe 2 weeks in, whatever it was, we started to run out of things in the store. Why? Because there was something called the global supply chain. And there was a system as to how that works, right? And it took time until everything went out. So in the Menorah, the Beit HaMikdash was similar. They had a Lishkat Hashmanim, they had a chamber of oil. And there was a supply chain that worked with that. It took 8 days to get the oil. They would have to travel to, I think they said it was called Tekoa, at least so I heard when I was younger. And they would make the oil. Making the oil would take time. Then traveling back with the oil would take time. And the whole system was 8 days. But they had a whole system where there was always plenty of oil inside there. And during the war, the Yevanim, as we said, went into the Heichal. They went into the chamber of the Beit HaMikdash, and they defiled all the oil. Excuse me. And when they found only one of them, it was enough for 1 day. But they lit it, and of course, a miracle happened, and it lasted for 8 days. How that miracle happened is a whole different discussion. We're not going to get into that right now, but there's lots of different opinions as to how that miracle happened. And at that point, they were able to get new pure oil, and then they were able to continue lighting as per the natural and regular way. Because of this, our sages instituted, the sages of that generation that has instituted, that these days should be considered, these days meaning starting on the 25th day of the month of Kislev, should be considered a Yom Tov, a holiday, in the following ways. We should read Hallel each of these 8 days. We should say the Al Hanisim, which we'll talk about on each of these 8 days. We should make blessings of praise to Hashem, and we should light for 8 nights at the doors of our home to show off the miracle, to publicize the miracle, and to reveal it to the entire world. These 8 days are called Chanukah. Why are they called Chanukah? Because Chanukah is a combination of the letters Ches Nun Vav, which spells Chanu, which means they rested, and Chav Hey is the numerical value of 20 Hey. That's the last 2 letters of the word Chanukah. 25. They rested on the 25. So therefore, Chanukah is a combination of these 2 words. Another reason for the name of Chanukah is because on that day they made the Chanukah HaMizbeach. The Chanukah HaMizbeach was, so for this we need a little bit of history. The Chanukah HaMizbeach was the dedication of the Mizbeach, and that also happened during these days. And after the history for this is that after that the Yevanim, the Assyrian Greeks had come into the temple and had brought Avodah Zarah, they had brought idol worship into they put figurines into the temple, all the exact opposite of what you would expect in the temple. Yeah. They brought figurines, they slaughtered pigs, and they brought those pigs up on the Mizbeach, on the altar. So for 8 days they had a dedication of the temple. Okay, now this requires some history. Why 8 days? Because and this is part of the origin for the 8-day holiday, right? We spoke about the miracle of the oil, but this is another origin of the 8-day holiday. 8 days because the first time that the temple was dedicated, which was obviously after Moses showed the Jewish people how to build the tabernacle, and they had the Mizbeach, the altar in the tabernacle, there was an 8-day inauguration process. So this was mimicking those 8 days. There is a difference of opinion among Jewish scholars about whether there is also a mitzvah to have a feast, to have a meal on Chanukah. So think of Purim, which is the other rabbinical holiday, right? Purim, it's very clear that it was these days were. It says it actually clearly in the Megillah that these days were also mishta v'simcha. They were also supposed to be days of eating, feasting. Purim, in other words, the day of Purim or Shushan Purim and Shushan, etc. Right? They're supposed to be days of feasting and joy. But on Chanukah, there's some opinions that yes, and some opinions that no. It's mainly about the praise to Hashem. So as a result, there's no requirement to necessarily have a meal. But in order to fulfill both opinions, what do? We have a meal. And at that meal, what do? We sing praises to Hashem. So then for sure it's part of the obligation according to everybody. Okay? You're not allowed to fast on Chanukah, even if you're a chatan, even if your wedding is on Chanukah, and you're a groom or a bride, and they're supposed to fast on the day of their wedding. Cue those that were at the Monday class 2 weeks ago, I think it was, when we were talking about the fact that a person's wedding is like their personal Yom Kippur. Anybody remember that? Right? So even though chatan and kala, a bride and groom, are supposed to fast on the day of their wedding, but if their wedding is on Chanukah, they fast a different day. Before Chanukah, after Chanukah, whatever it is, they have a makeup day of a fast, and on the day of their wedding, they do not fast. And the same thing, some people like to fast on the day of a yard site. You don't fast on Chanukah. But you are allowed to do work on Chanukah. This is interesting, right? So all the biblical holidays that we know of, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, on all these days, we're not allowed to work. But on Chanukah, we're actually allowed to work. It's not a day to rest from work. With one exception. Anybody know what that exception is? I'll give you a hint. It's 50% of the class today. Women. Women have taken upon themselves a minhag, a custom, that so long as during that time, when the Menorah, the candles of the Menorah are lit and they're burning, women abstain from working. They shouldn't be working. They shouldn't do work. That's the custom that they've taken about this, and this is not something to be lenient about. In other words, sometimes we say, oh yeah, it's a custom, whatever, yeah, you do what you can, whatever, but if they're making latkes, it's okay. No. While the candles are lit, women should be abstaining from work. And why is this? This is because the miracle of Chanukah has a special connection with women. Because of a big part of the miracle that was made by a Jewish woman, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Her name was Yehudit. Anybody know the story of Yehudit? So Yehudit, let's go through the story right now. Yehudit was the daughter of Yochanan, who was the Kohen Gadol, the Chashmonai Kohen Gadol at the time. And she, I would say seduced, but they didn't do anything. She pretended to seduce one of the generals of the Assyrian Greek army, and she told him, before we do anything, let me first feed you a meal. And she fed him first salty cheese in order that he should want to drink. She said, oh, I don't have any water. All I have is wine. No problem, I'll drink wine. By the time he was done eating lots of salty cheese and drinking wine, he fell asleep. When he fell asleep, she chopped off his head, and not only that, she took his head out to show it to all of the Assyrian Greek officers, and in this way they lowered their morale. And this was a big part of the victory that happened specifically through a Jewish woman. And whenever there is a Jewish woman specifically involved in the miracle, anybody think of another holiday? Esther, very good, Purim. And whenever there is a Jewish woman involved, specifically the Jewish women take special a special joy and special center place in fulfilling the mitzvah of the day. So sometimes we say ach hein hayubot hanet. Sometimes we say they were also in the miracle, but sometimes we say they were front and center in the miracle. And in this case, a big part of the miracle of Chanukah came through a Jewish woman, and therefore the women have taken upon themselves this custom not to work during the lighting of the menorah. That's also the reason, by the way, because of this cheese business. It's also the reason why when we have meals on Chanukah, we try to have dairy meals. It's a custom to eat dairy, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And this summarizes our brief history of the time of Chanukah. Okay, so what are the things that we do on Chanukah? So of course we have the mitzvah of lighting the menorah, and we're going to have to go into that in great detail. And that is one of the handouts that you have. But I want to start with the other handout, right? So primarily we said this is a day of Hallel v'Hodah. It's a day to say Hallel. It's a day to say Hallel and a day to add in special prayers of praise. So the first section we have here is called special prayers. Throughout the 8 days and nights of Chanukah, we had a special prayer called the Al HaNisim in the Amidah, as well as the grace after meals. So let's do that. I'm going to get a siddur, and I'll show you exactly where it is. I'm not going to hand out siddur to everybody.
Chanukah gives out for
Yes, I will not forget, Avram. We have to. A chassid is a mesudar. A chassid does things in an orderly fashion. So let's not jump all over the place. So starting with the prayers. So there is a prayer that's called the Al HaNisim, and we added in the Amidah right before Modim. Okay, just before Modim, in the middle of the, right after Modim, in the middle of the blessing of Modim, right after the paragraph called Modim, before we do the last final part where we bow and we finish that blessing, after the words Kimi Olam Kivinu Lach, or for your kindnesses never end, for we always place our hope in you. After that, we start a special blessing called the Al Nisim. It's the same. It starts off the same way we do it on Purim, but there's a special Chanukah one. It goes through briefly the history of Chanukah, and it highlights the most important parts of Chanukah, the things that we're grateful for. And this happens during the Amidah, but we also do it during benching. During benching, we also do it in the middle of the second blessing of benching. We also pause, we add in the Al Nisim, so you have to keep a special eye out for it. Obviously, it's one of those shaded areas. Let me read it for you now, shall we? The Al Nisim. And we thank you. Because the reason there's an and is because we're in the middle of a blessing. We're adding it in together with other gratitude. This is a blessing of thanksgiving, a blessing of gratitude, modim. Right? So we're adding in another thing we're thankful and grateful for. We say, and we thank you for the miracles, for the redemption, for the mighty deeds and the saving acts, and for the wonders which you have wrought for our ancestors in those days at this time. That last line, in those days at this time, is very much tied in with what we spoke about in the Monday class. When we spoke about the energy of a day, Chanukah is not something that we believe only happened X amount of years ago, but we also believe that every single year there's an energy of Chanukah that's reverberating, and we can tap into it. Obviously, it's an energy of light, an energy of miracles, and an energy, right, and an energy of dedication. All these things, renewal, right? All these energies. And we spoke a lot about all those energies, and this is where next week we'll talk a lot more about that. Some of the spiritual messages that there are in Chanukah that we have to be making sure to tap into. You know, amongst Hasidim, there's a saying that says you have to listen to the candles. After you light the menorah, you have to listen to the candles. I've heard of looking at candles. I've heard of basking in light. I've never heard of listening to light. Right? But it turns out the candles are speaking. What does it mean the candles are speaking? It means that there's messages of Chanukah. There's a spiritual energy of Chanukah that is reverberating through the lighting of the candles this year. And so next week we'll talk a lot more about many of those messages. But it's hinted to here when we say, in those days at this time. What does it mean at this time? In those days, I understand, that was the miracles they had in those days. What does it mean at this time? At this time means living with those energies today. So what is the story? The prayer continues. In the days of Matisyahu, the son of Yochanan the high priest, the Chashmonai and his sons, when the wicked Hellenic government rose up against your people, Israel, to make them forget your Torah, and violate the decrees of your will. I'll pause now again to stick in another practical element of Chanukah. On Chanukah, there is a custom to add extra Torah study on Chanukah. This is one of the most difficult things to do on Chanukah because everybody's got Chanukah parties to go to. We'll soon learn about the Chabad custom that the Rebbe wanted us to encourage others with lighting the menorah, so that you go out, you give out menorahs, etc. That's why these menorahs are here for you, each of you to take and share with a friend. And there's lots of other things to do on Chanukah, but you cannot forget that the most important thing is the Yevanim, the Assyrian Greeks, wanted to make the Jewish people forget their Torah. So it's important to actually add an increase in the study of Torah. And we continue. But you, in your abounding mercies, stood by them in the time of their distress. You waged their battles, defended their rights, and avenged the wrong done to them. You delivered the mighty into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the wanton sinners into the hands of those who occupy themselves with your Torah. Now is not the time to dive into it, but each of these actually references a different layer of enemies that there were fighting the Jewish people and fighting the Chashmonaim at the time of Chanukah. You made a great and holy name for yourself in your world and effected a great deliverance and redemption for your people Israel. To this very day. Then your children entered the shrine of your house, cleansed your temple, purified your sanctuary, kindled lights in your holy courtyards, and instituted these 8 days of Chanukah to give thanks and praise to your great name. So that is the first custom, or the first practical thing that we do on Chanukah. The first halacha that we have, to add Va'al Hanisim, we add it in each of the Amidas 3 times a day for 8 days straight. We also add it in our benching, whenever we wash and we eat bread, we also add this blessing. That is Va'al Hanisim. In addition to this, there is also a special reading of the Torah for each day of Chanukah, which talks about the dedication of the temple the first time that it happened. Right? So in other words, because we're channeling, let's call it, the energy of dedication. So therefore, we read about the dedication of the temple as it was in by the first Mishkan, by the tabernacle with Moses. And now is a great time to share a little insight about Chanukah. Along the same lines that we've been saying, that Chanukah, sure, it's about commemorating the story, but it's also about tapping into the spiritual energy that is these days. It turns out that Chanukah had the message of light over darkness, and Chanukah had the message of rededication, and all these messages that we talk about, even before the story of Chanukah happened. It didn't start with the story of Chanukah. You understand what I'm saying, Avram? In other words, if you were hanging around 50 years before the story of Chanukah,
50 years?
Yeah, if you were a Kabbalist, and you were,
I don't think my age was that.
If you lived 50 years before the story of Chanukah ever happened,
100.
if you were a Kabbalist, you would have been tapping into the energy of dedication and the energy of light over darkness, which we only learned about after the story of Chanukah, but you would have been tapping into it even before Chanukah. One of the ways that we see this is that actually Chanukah was supposed to be the original dedication of the temple. The Medrash relates that when Moses finished the tabernacle, Moses and the contractors, Bezalel and Haliab, that were putting together the tabernacle, when they finished the tabernacle, the day that they should have been dedicating it, so that would have been the dedication of the altar and the dedication of the, would have been the 25th day of the month of Kislev. And it would have been for 8 days from then on. For various technical reasons which are beyond the scope of today's lesson, it was pushed off to the beginning of the month of Nisan. And that's when we see that it actually happened. In the Torah, it tells us that this dedication actually happened on the first day of the month of Nisan. It started on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. I think it actually started 8 days. I may be confusing. It was right around Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Anyways, and what happened was, after that day, obviously after that day, the 25th day of Kislev was sad. Like, nobody's going to know about the energy that my day has. And so Hashem said, don't worry, I had planned. During the times of the Second Temple, there's going to be a story that's going to bring this out. And it's going to become revealed for everybody to see that actually, this is a time of dedication. That's the story of Chanukah that happened on that day. And they ended up dedicating the temple for 8 days, starting that day for 8 days straight. So that energy actually came forward and was revealed later on. But that energy always existed. Absolutely, you can ask something. That's not asking something, that's saying something. Yes, Chanukah does come from Chinuch.
Is there a Kabbalistic or some sort of Torah reference that alludes to
Chanukah? A little bit. Let's talk about it next week.
Okay.
Okay, fine. On each day of Chanukah, we immediately after the Amidah, we add a complete Hallel. During Shacharit, that is. During the morning service, we add the complete Hallel. We're going to sing our way through the entire Hallel, because that, of course, is one of the things that they instituted was specifically to say Hallel, which is a rabbinic mitzvah. It's one of the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs that were added to the 613 biblical mitzvahs, is to say Hallel. And the sages instituted that we should do it on Chanukah for each day, the entire Hallel. We make a blessing and we sing our way through it. So make sure you don't miss Shacharit during these 8 days of Chanukah. We have extra Hallel. We have extra Torah reading. Even not on Monday and Thursday, we read the Torah. And we have an extra insert that we do in the Amidah. And that concludes the special prayers that we do on Chanukah. Another custom, this was not a mitzvah, this is a custom that we have on Chanukah, is to play dreidel. It is a custom to play with a top called a dreidel, or sivivon on Chanukah. You guys see it? We're in the handout on dreidel. With the 4 letters Nun, Gimel, He, Shin on them. Why do we have the 4 letters Nun, Gimel, He, Shin? Because Nun, Gimel, He, Shin stands for Nes Gadol Hayasham, which means a great miracle happened there. And there is a tradition that during this time, when studying Torah was banned, as we said by the Syrian Greeks wanted to stamp out the spiritual nature of being Jewish. They had no problem with Jews existing. Eventually, there was also a war against the Jewish body, but primarily it was a war against the Jewish soul. And when they did so, they banned Torah learning. And the Jewish children and those that were teaching the Jewish children obviously risked their lives to study Torah. They went out to the caves. And the tradition tells us that they would have someone that would watch on the outside to see if there was an Assyrian Greek patrol, and if they would see them coming, they would all take out tops and they would play with them. So that's another significance that there is with the dreidels. Fun fact, in Israel, the letters on the dreidel are different. What are they? Nun, Gimel, Hey, Pei. Why? Because it stands for Nes Gadol Haya Po, which means a great miracle happened here. Not a great miracle happened here.
Oh, very good.
So obviously the letters have to be different. Right? So that's the
Gimel, what is it?
Hey Pei. Nun Gimel Hey Pei instead of Nun Gimel Hey Shin, because the last word is Po, which means here, instead of Sham, which means there. There are special foods that we eat on Chanukah. We spoke about some of them. It is customary to eat dairy foods, as we discussed on Chanukah, to remember the miracle of Yehudit, the daughter of Yochanan the high priest, which we spoke about. And it is also customary to eat foods fried in oil. Hence we have latkes and we have donuts to remember the miracle of the oil.
And taquitos.
Taquitos, I like French fries. Anything fried in oil, you're doing it. All right. Some other customs. There is a custom to distribute. Avram said it before. Chanukah gelt, to distribute Chanukah gelt, monies for children. I should mention that there is no place that it says to distribute Chanukah gifts. Nowhere in Jewish tradition does such a thing exist. I believe that is just taken from the non-Jewish world. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to give gifts to children. That's fine. But the official Chanukah custom is to give Chanukah gelt, Chanukah monies. And specifically, if I had to highlight one of the reasons why we specifically give money and not gifts, most likely it is because when we give Chanukah gelt, when we give Chanukah money, we can also emphasize another Jewish value, which is tzedakah, giving tzedakah. So you're supposed to give children Chanukah money, not force them to give charity, but to encourage them to give charity from their Chanukah gelt, and that is the Jewish custom. Okay, we keep going. Another custom. And this comes to the next point. It is customary to add in tzedakah during the days of Chanukah, for they are an opportune time to make up for misdeeds through tzedakah. Okay. So far, we have covered almost all of the laws of Chanukah, besides for the big one. So now let's turn to the second handout, and let's talk about lighting the menorah. Who is obligated to light a menorah on Chanukah? We discussed already that that's one of the big mitzvahs of Chanukah, is to light a menorah for 8 days, for 8 nights, that is. And by the way, I should point out that one of the things about the menorah, and that makes the menorah such a central part of Chanukah, is we actually begin with the menorah. A lot of holidays, we don't get to do, let's say, Sukkot, with the mitzvah of lulav and etrog, we don't get to start until 12, 15 hours into Sukkot. Right? Till the next morning. It has to be daytime. Chanukah menorah specifically is lit by night. So that means that we start off Chanukah with lighting the menorah. Which is a very powerful idea, which we'll talk much more about next week. But who is obligated to light the menorah? Every Jew is obligated to light the menorah on Chanukah. That's men, women, children, everybody. Even the needy, even those that cannot afford a menorah, should do everything in their power to buy lights for the menorah. So women are also obligated in this mitzvah, for they too had a part in the miracle, and as we learned, a central role in the miracle. And the Chabad custom is that women fulfill their obligation through their husband. What are we doing? How are we lighting the menorah? With what are we lighting the menorah? So the preferred lights for the menorah are virgin olive oil. If this is not accessible, beeswax candles are second best. But in any event, it is Chabad custom that the shamash be a candle made of beeswax. So the Chabad custom is, in order to remember the miracle of the oil, we light specifically oil. By the way, today it is very practical and easy to light an oil menorah. If you don't want to start getting messy by getting wicks and getting oil, etc., they sell on Amazon. Just search for oil menorah kit. For less than $40, you can buy a set that has enough little glass vials that already have oil in them, with a top on it that you just either snap off or it's a little plastic you take off, and it has the wick already in it. You just put them in the menorah. The bottom of it is usually small, so it can even go into a candle menorah, certainly into a menorah that has things. And if you haven't lit an oil menorah until today, I want to say they also light much more beautifully. And it's such a beautiful custom to light the oil menorah, because obviously we're remembering the miracle of the oil. So while these menorahs that we're distributing have candles in them, because it's a little bit impractical to start distributing oil menorahs, oil would be everywhere. But I want to encourage every single one of you to take some time. You can even buy it. I think there's even cheap sets for $20, $25. Some $35, whatever it is. They sell it on Amazon.
No, also in the market.
Yeah, of course, in all the kosher markets, they have all these things available. You can buy a set of it, and you can light an oil menorah. And I highly encourage every single one of you to do this. That is the preferred way of doing the mitzvah. That's not to say you don't do the mitzvah if you light with this, but that is the preferred way of doing the mitzvah. I want to add something else. I'm skipping here to the when. The ideal time to light the menorah is immediately after sunset, between Mincha and Ma'ariv. And the menorah, and until when can you light it? The menorah may be lit as long as someone is awake in the home. Okay, we didn't get into the time here, but the menorah should be lit for, I believe it's a minimum of 50 minutes. Let me get to that. Hold on. 50. 50. Give me a second. Oh, it says it somewhere?
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Bottom of the third sentence.
Oh, okay. So that's already talking about when it gets to Shabbos. Basically, the menorah, the candles must be lit for at least 30 minutes after dark. So it depends when you're lighting the menorah. Let's say you're lighting it when we just said. The preferred time to light the menorah is as soon as you can. When is that? Immediately after sunset, between Mincha and Ma'ariv. But the menorah needs to light for at least 30 minutes after dark. So ideally, it should light for 50 minutes. Now, if you're lighting it after dark already, then 30 minutes is enough. Why do I say this? I say this because on the first night of Chanukah, if you light these menorahs, you definitely fulfill the mitzvah. Light it, the candle will light for 50 minutes, probably even close to an hour. As you start to get to the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, 8th night of Chanukah, you have a lot of heat that comes off of these menorahs. And as a result, the wax burns much quicker. You'll see it. I bought this year ones with longer candles, but still, even with longer candles, sometimes it doesn't last for half an hour. You have to be careful. It depends how hot it is in your house, etc. With oil, you're guaranteed it's going to last way over an hour, because those little cups of oil will last in 2 hours at least. So that's another detail in the mitzvah of Chanukah, which first of all, it's important to get right, even if you're going to light candles. But more importantly, it's also another detail we have to make sure that we get it right and that we do it appropriately. Okay, so the oil helps you do that. So I highly encourage everybody to get an oil menorah this year. Where are we lighting the menorah? The menorah is lit either in the window or in the doorway across the mezuzah, so that it should be surrounded by mitzvot. So if you put it in the doorway of a door, right? So now you have the mezuzah on one side, the menorah on the other side. You put it on the other side of the mezuzah, and then anytime you walk into the house, you're surrounded by mitzvah. The menorah should be lit in the dining area where one dines permanently. So when attending a party, one should wait to light the menorah until coming home.
What if your dining room doesn't have a door?
One
A lot of
second.
these dining rooms.
One second. We're going to get to that in just a second. First of all, I'll explain why. I want to say something, which is I think what I meant when I wrote this point. The menorah. What was that?
She has to marry somebody who's a rabbi.
I think she's married already. It's a little too late.
No, she knows a lot.
Okay, so the menorah should be. But before we're getting to the door of the dining area, I think what I meant first is the menorah should be lit where you are eating, not in the place you're eating, in the house that you're eating in. So, for example, on Wednesday night we are going to have a Chanukah party here. If you will not have an opportunity to light the menorah anywhere else, that's fine. Light it here because you're eating here. At least that. But ideally, the menorah should be lit in your home, where you eat and where you sleep. So if you're going out to a Chanukah party, go out to a Chanukah party, but come home and light the menorah again. And ideally, it should be lit by a doorway that is connected to the dining area. Okay, now, a doorway does not mean a front door. It doesn't have to be a front door. In Israel, I know they all like to have that front door. Have you been ever Chanukah in Israel?
Or they
I've
have
never
all
been.
these little inset things that they all
Either
like.
inset things, or they have these glass cases that they put outside, etc. Glass cases, yeah, obviously with ventilation, etc. But that is only in Israel, where it's a Jewish city, a Jewish whatever government, etc. Outside of Israel, we don't do that. We don't put it outside our doorway, and that has to do with anti-Semitism. Now is not the time to get into that. But so the Chabad custom is to light it in a doorway or a hallway archway, even if there's no actual door. Anywhere where there's a mezuzah that has an entryway to your dining room, you put it on the other side of the mezuzah, and that's where you put it. How high should it be? The menorah should be elevated from the ground by 3 tefachim, 9.6 inches, but ideally lower than 10 tefachim, 32 inches. So you have to put a little table, put the menorah on it, and it should be within that space, within 9.6 inches from the ground, but lower than 32 inches from the ground. Now, higher than that is still kosher until it's 20 amot high, which is 33 feet. Then it is prohibited. And that's why you'll see the tallest menorahs that there are in Grand Army Plaza or in Manhattan are all 33 feet tall. Now, I want to talk about something. I don't think it's relevant to anybody here. It's maybe relevant to you, probably not as much. If there are going to be children in your home, most important is that the menorah should be high enough that the children should not be able to reach it and result in one of these horrible tragedies, which unfortunately happen almost every year. There's a horrible tragedy that happens somewhere in the world because of menorah. I remember when we were very young, I had a friend who literally the flames caught on to his pajamas, whatever it was. He was very young, and the flames caught up all the way up. It's actually a friend of mine who many of you know. He's Sheva Stalik's brother. When he was really young, the menorah caught up his shirt and lit his entire chest on fire. Thank God his father had the foresight, and Hashem put it into his mind to think what to do. What are you doing, such a case? He was literally up in flames. His father took him, threw him into the bathroom, turned on the water, and thank God he's fine today. He had to have some skin grafts and whatever, but that's it. Thank God he is okay today. But it's very, very, I guess my point is it's very, very important that the menorah should be at the right height for safety before anything else. When we say safety first, we mean even before halacha. Okay, so of course, halacha allows us to do it as long as it's under 33 feet. But probably under 32 inches is probably still too low that a young child can grab it. So for example, in my house, I have not been keeping this halacha for many years now. And I hope for many years not to keep this halacha. Until God willing, we'll be able to again, and then we'll bring it down to the right
So
height.
it's okay to put it like on a little table like this or something if you're doing it
For children, yeah, for safety. But if it's, for example, in your home, where there's no little children, a lower table is probably better, and you should get it to within 9.6 inches and 32 inches. Okay. We already said when we're lighting it. Oh, furry kids, I guess, same idea. I don't know enough about that. If you have pets, you're saying running around.
The same problem.
That would not, I guess so, same issue. Yeah.
And they can knock it over.
How do we light the menorah? On the first night of Hanukkah, we light one light and add one more each night, culminating with 8 on the eighth night. I should mention that in the Gemara it says that you fulfill your obligation even if you light one candle for the entire home, one candle, not even one menorah, one candle in the entire home for the entire family. And that's for the men, for the women, for the children, for everybody, one candle, not even 8. And then the Gemara continues and says, mitzvah of Hamahadrin, anybody who wants to do the mitzvah properly, should do 8. I forget what the first barometer is. I think the first barometer is you should do 8 for the entire home. It might be the opposite. Either way, could be it's one light for each person in the home. Anyways, and then the Mahadrin, the next step is that you should have 8 lights for each person in the home. Right. Now, I noticed there was a correction here about 9. You don't light 9 candles on the menorah. Actually, it's very important that the menorah should be, first of all, it's important that the menorah is in such a way that all 8 candles are equal in height. because you have to see that they're all part of one menorah. If you start having them in different heights, it could be different people's menorahs, which is usually what happens. Like if you have a few menorahs, each one is different heights, and that's very clear. These are 8, these are 8, these are 8. And in addition to that, the ninth candle, which is not really a candle, it's only a shamish. It's part of the reason why the Chabad custom is to light a beeswax candle. It's different than all the other ones. But in addition to that, it should be either higher, lower, different, forward, whatever it is, different than the other 8 lights, to have this separate candle, which is the shamash, which is only the one that lights all the other ones. Which is a whole, there's lessons from that, and there's a spiritual importance to that, etc. But it should be different than the menorah, it should be separate from the menorah. Okay. So, now we've established, and the Rebbe would often point out that Chanukah is the only mitzvah. The menorah on Chanukah is the only mitzvah that we find that it's become widespread Jewish custom to do mahadrin min mahadrin. The best, the most perfect, and amazing way to do it. Every single Jew does it that way. There's a lesson in that too. We'll talk about all these lessons next week. So on the first night of so we light one candle. We add one more each night, culminating with 8 on the 8th night. On the first night of Hanukkah, we recite 3 blessings before we light a single candle, and they are Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiyachanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu, right? Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who commanded us, who sanctified us with the commandments, commanded us too. Then we end off lahadlik ner Hanukkah, to light the lights of Hanukkah. The second blessing, not the same preface. It talks Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, no asher kiyachanu mitzvotav. Just she'asa nisim la'avoteinu b'yom v'hem bizman hazeh, which means that he did miracles for our forefathers in those days at this time. And number 3, of course, is only on the first night, which is Shechianu, right? Thanking Hashem that He brought us to this time. On the succeeding nights, in other words, the other 7 nights, we only make the first 2 blessings. We don't make the third blessing. But if for some reason a person doesn't light the menorah on the first night or 2 or 3 or whatever it is of Hanukkah, then they make a Shechianu whenever they do it for the first time. When setting up the menorah, so before you made the blessing, you set up the menorah. When you set up the menorah, you should set it up from the right side and set up as many lights as necessary for that evening, proceeding to the left. Okay? And you go along like that. But when you light it, you do the opposite. You start from the left. In other words, whichever one is the newest candle. So on the third night, you're starting with light number 3, and then light number 2, and light number 1. So in other words, you set them up from right to left, and you light them from left to right. Starting with the newest light first, and proceeding to the right all the way to the end, 1 light at a time. Thank you. Upon concluding lighting the menorah, we recite a prayer called Hanerot Haladu. Other people have a custom, it's not a Chabad custom, but other people have a custom to sing Ma'os Tzur, and any other songs or poems that are custom of the home. You should not light anything, including a menorah, from the Chanukah lights. Very, very important. It's another reason for the Shamish, is that you're not supposed, in the Hanerot Haladu prayer, we say as follows. I'll read it. Hanerot halalu, these lights. Anu madlikin, we are lighting. Allah teshuot, because of the salvations. V'ala nisim, and for the miracles. V'ala niflot, for the wonders. Shasitu labatinu, that you did for our forefathers. B'yamim me'im izman hazeh, in those days at this time. Ayedei kohanecha kadoshim, through your holy kohanim. V'chol shmonat mei Chanukah, and for all 8 days of Chanukah, Hanerot halalu, these lights kodeshim, they are holy. Ve'elon reshut, and we have no permission lishtamish by him to use them. Ela lirot and bavad, rather only to gaze at them. Kidei, in order, the Hodah to the Halal Hashem Chagadol, to praise and to sing to your great name, and Nisecha, for your miracles, and for your salvations, and for your wonders, and for your salvations. One of the things that we expressly say, that prayer is in the Siddur. You can find it in the Siddur. If you look in the index of the Siddur, and if anybody wants to write the name, the page number, give me a second, I'll announce it. Page 389, you have the order of the lighting of the menorah. And in the English Siddur, this one, if you have it at home, which I think most of you do, because you were all in the Siddur class, they'll have the blessings, and then after the blessings, they'll have Hanerot Haladu, the special prayer that we sing. There's a beautiful, beautiful Chabad melody to it, by the way, which you can listen to on Spotify. Just Google Chabad Hanerot Haladu, and you'll find it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful melody, very long and slow, and it's a beautiful thing to put on if you're meditating to the light of the candles and trying to internalize the messages of the candles. It's a beautiful melody to put on. It actually has a history to the melody. It was composed by the Kapelya, the choir of the second Chabad Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe. When the Mittler Rebbe was ill, he would only come out in public to the Hasidim, times when he was doing mitzvot or whatever, for davenings or things like that. So they composed the Hanerot Halal that was very lengthy, because they wanted to be able to spend more time with their Rebbe. Anyways, it's a beautiful, beautiful melody. There's also quicker ones. There's an Israeli one that's much quicker. But one of the things that we say in that prayer is that we're not allowed to use the light of the menorah.
Music for children.
Yeah. We're not allowed to use the light of the menorah. We're not allowed to light a candle for, I don't know, for whatever. For
Shabbat, right?
For Shabbat, for example. Or even more practical, for another menorah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You want to light the next menorah, you want to take from this menorah? No, you're not allowed to. Only the Shamish.
Can you use it for the Shabbat?
No, you cannot use it for Shabbat candles either. Nothing. Only the shamish, and that's one of the reasons that one of the things that the shamish service is the shamish can be used.
They want to be lishma.
What? No, it's supposed to be for the miracle, to remember the miracle. Pirsumei Nisa, to publicize the miracle, so that we look at it and we see. Yes, of course, the miracle is to praise Hashem for it.
So that was my question. We light the shamas first, and then you go left to right. Because you were saying start with the left to right. But
You start with the shamish. Yeah, but that's not considered lighting anything.
Right.
You could do that 10 minutes before if you want to.
Right. But you start with that.
And you don't make a blessing yet. You hold it and you make the blessing.
And then you use that to light the other candle, or you do a separate?
No, you use the shamish to light the other candles. Correct.
From the left to the right.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying that.
But not for Shabbat candles.
No, not for Shabbat. Well, you can use the shamish for Shabbat candles if you want to. Sure.
Oh, you can.
The shamish, not the actual Hanukkah lights.
Got it.
This is why we clarified before when he said 9 candles in the menorah. I clarified there's only 8 candles on the menorah. The other candles are shamish. It's a separate thing.
Got it.
The candles must be lit. Speaking of Erev Shabbos, the candles must be lit for at least 30 minutes after dark and 50 minutes from when they were lit. If a light is extinguished during this period, we may rekindle it without a blessing. Obviously not on Shabbos, right? But you can rekindle it. Like if somebody opens the door and the wind blows and blows it out, you just keep light. You turn it back on and it continues for 30 minutes. On Friday afternoon, lighting the menorah immediately precedes the lighting of the Shabbat candles. And on Friday afternoon, you have to make sure you have enough oil to last not only for 30 minutes, but also for the full 50 minutes. Usually even a little more, maybe almost an hour and 10 minutes probably, till it's going to be 30 minutes after dark. And after Shabbos, the menorah is lit in the home immediately following Havdalah. So you come home, you make Havdalah first, and then, so the order is opposite. You light the menorah first, then Shabbat candles, then goes the whole Shabbat, then Havdalah, and after Havdalah, we light the menorah and we sing the prayers for the menorah. There are many other laws about lighting the menorah that are like what if, which we won't get into. But obviously you guys all have my text message. And if you'd like to ask me any questions, you're obviously always welcome.
Why is the sky blue?
No, questions relating to Chanukah. But I want to conclude with the following. One of the messages of Chanukah, I'm kind of stealing into next week here. One of the messages of Chanukah is that you are supposed to be like a candle. You should be lighting other candles. You're supposed to be like a shamash. You should be lighting other candles. You should be out there spreading the light. And that includes Chanukah, and that includes everything with regards to Judaism, but specifically with regards to Chanukah, it is important not just to light the menorah for yourself, as I'm sure all of you will do in your own home. It is also important to encourage others to light the menorah. If there is a Jew that you know, and I guarantee you, each of you knows at least one Jew, that you're not sure if they'll be lighting the menorah yet this Chanukah, I would like to challenge you that you should take one of these. You should encourage them to take this, and you can take these also. You can invite them to all of our Chanukah events, and you can all take this home. This has all of our Chanukah events in it. But I want to challenge you to take at least one of these, if not 2, and take it with you. Give it to a Jewish coworker, a Jewish neighbor, a Jewish friend, even somebody you don't know very well. Say, hey, I don't know if you're planning to light the menorah this year, but we can always use more light in the world. I want to gift this to you, that you should light the menorah. So these are free for you to take to give to others. And you can tell them, like I'm telling you, that there's a barcode on the front of it. I think most of you are already on that WhatsApp group. But if you scan this barcode, you end up on the WhatsApp group that we have, Jewish Pasadena. And every night of Chanukah, I'll be opening it up for everybody to post a selfie with their menorah, which I think would be so beautiful that we'll all be able to see each other lighting the menorah in your home. Lighting the menorah is something that's done at home, but it doesn't have to be done alone. Right? We can all post our pictures, and we'll be able to unite and light the menorah together. So please, before you leave, take these menorahs and these flyers with you to hand out to friends of yours and encourage them to light the menorah. And with this, we will conclude installment number 1 of Demystify Chanukah. And next week, you can join us for insights into Chanukah, spiritual insights about the energy of the day.